you all, and with the interest of the time, let's start with the session. Yeah.
Hello
And
everyone. Yeah, please go ahead.
and in the meantime, if you have any kind of questions, because to have a smooth kind of sessions, please park your questions in the chat. At the end of each sections, we will try to answer your questions. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Ruchir. Thanks a lot. And thanks to Ruchir and Gajanan for inviting me for this particular session from Pune community. And this session is like more, we are going to talk about the automation frameworks. And rather, I love to call it as a template rather calling it as a framework, because there is a slight narrow between the framework and the template, and which we are going to see in the session as well. And so regarding the session, we are hosting from the Pune UiPath community Pune chapter, and we have the Pune community chapter link in the chat. So please follow that and join the chapter to get the regular updates. And here we have Ruchir for the host. And Ruchir, can you please talk about yourself?
I won't take much of the time because we have already passed 10 minutes. So, but I'm following with this UiPath community, and it is very wonderful. And I have got to learn many more things because of this community. And Gajanan is assisting me a lot in Pune chapter lead activities. It is his initiative, but we would like your inputs actually going forward, that what kind of sessions we can. If you are interested in kind of planning some sessions, please feel to reach out to us, either me or Gajanan. We would be more happy to understand your thing, listen to your stories, and pitch them at a next level up with the UiPath team. So yeah.
Thanks, Ruchir. And Gajanan.
Hello everyone. Facing some challenges with the camera, but yep, just wanted to say thank you to Pathrudu and everyone for joining this session. We are, always excited to come up with new sessions or technologies that are going into the market. So, I also started as working as a RPA developer like long back now, almost 4.5 years, and like just wanted to let you know, if you're looking for anything, like if you're junior or you're starting your career in RPA, right? You can reach out to Pathrudu, me, or Ruchir as well. Or if you are thinking of hosting any session like insightful session, just like Pathrudu is hosting, or like organizing the session for UiPath, test suite. If you are also interested into this, that also let us know. We will help you in any ways for this Pune chapter or any other chapter you're, to grow yourself into the community and like, become a better professional in any ways. We are like more than happy to help you out. So please feel to reach us on LinkedIn or any other ways of sources. Thank you, Pathrudu.
Yeah, thanks, Gajana. And myself, like I'll be taking the session today, and I'm Pathrudu Chintakaila, and I'm working with RPA since last 6.5 years, and I worked on UiPath, RPA implementations and test suite as well. And I'm leading the UiPath community chapter Visakhapatnam as well. So as Gajan said, like in case if you want to speak, like it is not restricted to only Pune. Like you can talk in any of the chapters. Like you can reach out to any of the chapter leads of like based on the topic and your interest. You can talk on any of the topics or any of the chapters, and you can reach out to any of three of us, and we are happy to help you out in that. Right, and doesn't want to take much time, though we have a lot of on the slide, but we'll jump into the topic without wasting much time here. And so today's topic or agenda, what we are going to talk about is like what are the different test automation frameworks we have as consent to the test automation. We are not talking about the specific to UiPath test suite, but in terms of test automation, what are the different frameworks we have in the test automation, and what are the different frameworks we have in UiPath test automation, and what also like I missed out to mention, but what is the difference between the framework and template, and why we require the frameworks. We will be discussing about that, and why do we need to use the UiPath test automation framework, because we have other framework already available, which is BDD and UiPath, when we are going to create a test case. But why do we need to use UiPath test automation framework, and what is the difference between BDD and UiPath test automation framework template? So I said, right, like the framework and template. And there is a narrow difference between these two. And I always love to call it as a template rather calling it as a framework, right? So we will deep dive into that. And I would like to know one thing. Can you people raise your hands? Uh, who is from the RPA side? Like who is from the RPA to test or looking for test automation suite? I want to see like how many people we have. We have 8, only 8. Okay, that's fine. So when we do and when we talk about any RPA implementations of UiPath, we always call RE framework. But is it really a framework? What I feel is it's a framework, it's a template. Like it's a template which is giving you a set of rules or best practices to implement your automations. In the similar way, rather I call this UiPath test automation template, which is giving you a set of rules or best practices to implement your test automation and creating your test cases, right? And what are the different test automation frameworks we have? What are the different test automation frameworks we have? We have linear scripting framework, which is kind of like when we have a very small applications and we want to test and we want to test it very quickly. And we doesn't want to plan anything and we doesn't want to make any reusabilities. And we just want to test in end to end of any small applications. And we want to have a faster testing. And here we will not use any variables or assets or something. We will be using hard-coded values and we just use a sequential order of coding in order to test our applications. That we call it as a linear scripting framework. And then modular testing framework, where we will be breaking down our test automation into different modules, and we will building our reusabilities, and we will be reutilizing them wherever it is required. That we call it as a modular testing framework. And when it comes to the data-driven testing, when we want to test an application with a large set of data to cover the corner cases, we will be using data-driven testing, and where we will be using data from an Excel or a database or different data sources. And when it comes to the UiPath, we can use test data queues, or we can use the data services as well when it comes to the data-driven testing. And keyword-driven testing, where in the data-driven testing, we will be providing the synthetic data in order to test the applications, but where we have the keywords mentioned in the data source in order to test our keyword-driven testing framework. Both are almost similar, and there is no much difference between these two. And the hybrid testing framework, when you combine one or two frameworks or two or more frameworks to get the advantage of each framework. Like let us suppose you have some advantage in the modular testing framework and you have some advantage in the data-driven testing framework. And these advantages are not available in only one of the frameworks. Then we are combining both of the frameworks in order to have this hybrid testing framework. And the behavior-driven development framework, where we will be having a single platform for like business analysts, developers, testers to come on and do the testing, and there will be a good coordination between the development team and the testing team as well. Like for example, we can say the best example for BDD is Cucumber, right? And in UiPath also, if you remember, when we create a test case, we will be having the BDD only that we are going to look in once we log in, once we get into the UiPath studio. So let us go into the UiPath studio and see. So when we want to start our project, we have different templates here, project templates. So here we have the process, library, test automation, And we can create our own templates and we can publish it for reusable, like later from where we can start our project as well. And in the similar ways for the RPA implementations, automation implementations, we have robotic enterprise framework. Most of the people generally use that, right? And in the similar way, we have multiple frameworks. We can go to more templates, and here we can filter based on whatever official or like someone published to the marketplace and all. And let me search with test. And here we have test automation framework. So we can select this and we can create the project by selecting this template. And when we call this as a template, this is at the project level. That is the reason for which we call it as a framework. Because even inside of the project also, you can define multiple templates. But this template is at the project level. For that reason, we are calling it as a framework. Use the template. And I'll just keep the default names, and I don't want to change anything as of now, and we will create this project. And we have created our project. And when we go to the project folder, we have already a default test case, empty test case available. When we go to this test case, we have given, when, and then. So these three are part of the BDD framework. Like, what are the values we are giving in order to setting up the application, and also what are the data we want to use, and that we will be going to define in the given. And then we are going for when, what actions needs to be performed, what steps needs to be tested, and then is whatever the outcome of this when we execute the test case, what is the outcome of that we are going to get it in the then. This is the BDD. Right? And if you remember, when you work with RE framework, we have assets, like we have a reusable components and a structure, and we will be, by default, it will read from the asset values for the variables. And by default, we will be having exception handling. And there is nothing here given, right? In this particular test case, there is nothing that like which is going to handle your exceptions or which is going to create anything, right? So that is not available. And for each and every test case, when we want to implement a new test case, we need to manually do the exception handling for each of the things. And if you want to fetch some values from the assets, we need to again do that coding from ourselves. Like we need to maintain the asset names in some data source, and we need to fetch the values from orchestrator assets, and we need to build all this complex logic. So to avoid that, what we can do? So before we jump into whatever already we have the test automation framework, so I want to showcase you what are the templates and how we can create those templates. Inside of the project explorer, under the templates, you can right click and you can add a template. You can just, we have workflow template and we have test case template. We can create not only for the test cases, even for the workflows also, we can create some templates. So first, let us create this workflow templates and test case templates, and we will come back to the execution templates in the later stage. So first, let me create this workflow template and let us see what is going to happen. And this, I'll just keep the name as workflow template only. And for now, I'm not going to do anything. When you come to here and we want to create a workflow, click on this. And under the template, we have the workflow template. Now we created, right? That's the reason for which we are getting this local templates, workflow template. Or else by default, you have sequence, flowchart, and state machines. That even we can select it from here also, right? The sequence, flowchart, and state machines, because these are the input workflow templates. And now I'm creating this workflow template, and I will not do any complex coding here. I'll just put a log message. Workflow template. I'm just giving you just log message, and I'm just saving this. And now what I will do is I'll just create a new workflow, and I'll select the workflow template from here, from the drop down, and I'll just click on create. Now I could able to see whatever the activities I have in the template got automatically reflected back here. Let us suppose if you are working with an application and you found that almost like 80% steps are common, only the configurations are changing. In that case, instead of like you doesn't have an option to pass an argument or you cannot invoke it. So in such a scenarios, you can simply create your template and you can just select this in order to create your new workflow. Okay. And this is about the workflow. And let me create a sequence here. I'm just sequence and I'll just say template. And I'll just create log message. Oops. And I'll just simply say info exported as template. So what I will do is, as of now, I just created a sequence, like however we generally create our workflows in the similar way. I just created a sequence. And let us come back to here. Here is a sequence template. Right click on this, we can extract it as a template. So when I click it as an extract it as a template, sequence template, and it is giving another name also. Let us keep it as it is and create. Now this works as a template for me. And if I click on workflow, and here under this workflow template, I got a sequence template as well. So in these two ways, I can create my own templates, right? In the simple test case also, I can go to the templates and add, and I can click on test case template. Here also, here based on what template? We have empty test case and BD test case. So whatever I have said right, like by default, whatever the test case is got generated, it is with the BDD framework, right? And we can have these templates created. And for now, I'll just go with empty test case and click on create. And here I can just create my own template, whatever I want to create for a test case. And before we go for that, so we have 5 phases in the testing, automation testing. One is setup, given, when, then, and teardown. So let me do one thing. Let me delete whatever I have created till now. Delete. And in the templates also, I will create this, delete this. So whatever I have created, I just deleted those. And what I will do is, I'll just create a new template. I'll go to the templates, I'll go to add, and I'll create an execution template. And I'll just click on create. And here, what I will do is, I'll just write a log message. Execution template initiated. And I'll just put a log message here. Info. Execution template complete. So these are the 2 messages I have. And let me run this. And I have these 2 log messages printed here. As of now, I'm just closing this and I doesn't want to use that as of. And let me run this test case. Run file. So here, if you see, right? Oops, it is going to some other. Let me not execute this for now. I'll tell you what actually it's happening. Let me create a new test case, and I'll create on the BDD template and click on create. And here, log message. Given. Log message. when log message there. So this is the test case which I created as of now, and let me run this one. And I could able to see 3 log messages, which is given when then whatever I placed here, right? And let me do one thing. Let me go to the project, and for the test case one, I'll right click on this, and I'll just keep set execution template, and I'll select the template, execution template, which I just created. Click on OK. And now let me run the same file. I'm not changing anything in the file. I'm just going to run this file. If you see here, right, execution template initiated and execution template completed. These 2 log messages are getting reflected. The reason is, let me go to the execution template. Here I have a placeholder, and this will be replaced by this test case. Instead of invoking this test case one here inside of this template, I'll just keep a placeholder because this is a template, and I'm assigning test case one for the execution to use this template. So automatically, this test case one, whatever we have, will be automatically invoked here inside of this placeholder when it is getting executed. Okay. And when I execute this test case, because this by default we created from the test automation framework template. That is the reason for which when we execute this, we are getting a lot of log messages like start setup, initialize assets, and all this we are getting instead of having, though we have only these 3 log messages here. The reason is this test case has assigned to test framework.xaml. So when it comes to the test automation framework, we doesn't have much complicated thing. The only additional thing is to your existing test case of BDD, the execution template of test automation framework got set as an execution template. And let us go and explore what we have in the test framework.xaml. This is the template where we have setup, run test, and teardown. So let us go one after the other, and we will see what is happening in each of the states. So when we have the RE framework, we have in each of the state, we have defined that in initialization, it will open the applications, and in the get transaction data, it will get the data, and in the process transaction, it will process. In the end process, it will close all the applications. And in the similar way, we have a setup and test execution and teardown as well. Teardown is nothing but the closing of your application. Setup is nothing but opening of your application and setting all the data application ready and getting the required assets and whatever the prerequisites for your test case execution. And when we have this test case with the given when then, and it is a bit hard for us to handle the reading of the data, and we need to have a complicated logic, or like we need to write all the template try catches and opening of the applications and everything. But here in this test automation framework, by default, we have all these setup and teardown. First, we will look at these 2, and then we will come to the run test. I'm minimizing this run test, and we'll look that in the later stage. And let me come to open this workflow. And here it is reading init all assets. It is going to read all the data, whatever the assets are required. And assets, here we are using the JSON file. By default, this template is using JSON, but we can change it to Excel in case if you want to build your test automation framework only with an Excel. You can just create your Excel and you just modify your test framework template or template to read the data from Excel and get the asset values. And here we can define all the asset values. But the problem here with this particular setup, and we are using JSON, it will work only for the assets other than the credentials. In case if you want to use the credentials, you need to explicitly write your own workflow in order to read the data from credential assets. Or you can provide your names in the constants, or you can just put it in some a new JSON like a credential.json, and just read in the similar way like how it is happening in the all settings. And whatever the data we have, it will be stored in the dictionary variable. And this dictionary object is a global variable. Inside of this data manager, you can see what we have. See, assets is going to be your global variable, right? And if we go to the assets here, whatever the output we are getting out underscore assets, that we are going to assign it to the assets, which means your assets is going to be your global variable where each and every test can consume your dictionary variable, right? And let me close this. And here, let us suppose if you need to log into an application, that logging and navigating to a page and everything can be defined here itself in the setup. So this test automation framework is going to help us to make your application ready before your test execution begins. And once the test execution is completed, we have a teardown where we will be closing off our all applications, signing out and closing. That we will be writing a workflow here. But by default, we have kill all processes, because in case if closing fails, then we are going to kill the applications. And here, see here, in case if any exception is occurred in the teardown, we are not throwing any exception here. We are just writing a log message, and that too at the warning level, because my test execution is completed. Whatever I need to fulfill from my test case, that was already fulfilled. So it doesn't require for me to throw any exception or to fail the test case. And in case if you go to the setup, in the exception catch block, we have a verification statement. Set the expression default value to false, because in case if the setup itself is got failed and there is no point of executing my test case for testing of the application, because the application itself is not got open. So here itself it will get failed and the test case execution will be ended and the status will be updated as failed test case. And in the run test, we have a timeout, like in case if you want to execute your test cases or your test executions in a timely manner, like in case let us suppose you want to execute at one scenario, like logging into an application and see whether it is getting logged in or not, and you doesn't want to wait for 1 hour or 2 hours, because sometimes the application is loading sometime taking long time, and you doesn't want to wait for that much time. In case if your time got extended for the defined time period, then the execution itself will fail. And that's where like throw exception after, like execution timeout activity. And this test timeout, by default, we have it in the data manager. Let me go to the variables. Let me come here. Under the data manager, I have the test timeout. And by default, it is giving 20 minutes. And what we can do is we can even keep this in assets also. Instead of having it hard coded here, we can put it that into the assets also. And the test placeholder. This is the place where we are going to invoke, or the execution template is going to invoke our test case. And if you see here, when we execute this test case, we have initializing assets, asset name information is not available, and initialization ended, assets ended, run given, run when, run then, start teardown, right? But when I execute this, I have only execution initiated and execution completed, because I assigned this execution template as test case 1 execution template. And let me do one thing. I'll right click on this test case 1. I'll just take set execution template and I'll change it to test framework and click on OK. And now let me run this test case 1. See here, whatever we saw in the test case execution, all those log messages we could able to see, which means the test case, whatever we are going to create, after creation of the test case, we need to set the execution template to test framework.xaml. This is what we need to do in order to leverage the capabilities or the efficient for test automation framework. And what is the advantage of? Like I got a couple of queries from couple of people that they are testing an application and they have a lot of test cases, and they want to execute the test case end to end, and it should be in an order, because once my first test case is completed, the second test case or third test case, which is going to get executed on the same machine, doesn't know from in which state the application is available, and they need to check like where the screen page is, and they need to navigate back and all these things. But here, by following this test automation framework, what we are going to do is we are going to clean our system itself when the test execution is completed. Still, we are going to have the given when then structure, but we are going to add two more steps. One, before the test execution, to read the values from assets, and also set a initializing of our applications. And once the test execution is completed, we are going to add closing of our all the applications. And if we're not able to close the applications, we are forcefully killing the application, so that my system environment is going to be very clean when the next test case is going to get executed on that machine. So this will help us to organize our code, not only in terms of cleaning of our environment, also the exception handling by default we have. And we can just take care of what needs to be implemented in this test case. And let us suppose if you want to modify something to this existing framework, you can even modify this as well. See, when we executed this test case one, we have these log messages: start setup, initialization assets and given, right? So we have the given which is getting invoked here inside of this, right? And let me write a log message. Before test case execution, let me save this and let me come back here and run this test case. Before test case execution, whatever I modified in the test framework, and that is going to get reflected when we are executing the test cases also. This is how the test automation framework will help us to implement our test cases with an exception handling and making our code more structured and reading the data from assets and reducing our development effort when we are going with that test framework. Okay, so let us open for the questions. Okay, I think now you guys could able to unmute yourself, and if you have any questions, we are open for the questions. Yes, this session recording will be provided. I think I gave the permission. Okay, now I gave the permissions. I think now you can unmute. Then someone just confirm. Yes.
Hey, Patri.
I
Actually, you specified that global variables, right, in the test framework. So, can we convert them to normal variables?
From the global variables to
Yeah,
normal variables in the
because
sense local variables.
because handling global variables is a hectic thing because we give a code to another people.
It's not at all possible. Like once you define the global variables, you cannot change the scope to the local. Rather,
Okay.
you can delete that variable and create a local variable.
Okay, in test framework itself, we can do that, right?
In test framework in the sense, I'm not getting your question because when you're
No,
talking
you
about
showed me a framework, right? Though the values, some of the variables are defined as global variables in the framework you showed me. So I'm asking you whether if you want to give that code or we want to give the package to someone else to test it. So in the system also the global variables, they have to define it as a global variable, right?
see, this is an execution template, and but one thing is when you are giving your package to someone others in a zip file or something, right? Instead of going to send it to zip, you use the WinRAR or something, right? Based on that, like you can even send the global variables also, because there is one folder,
Yeah.
which is dot objects, I guess.
Huh.
That folder needs to be whatever the dot files dot folders you have, right? When you directly right click and send it to zip, in that case those dot folders will be missing. But in case if you use WinRAR or some tools in order to zip your folder, and you will not face this problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Okay.
Any more questions, guys? Not only about this session, you can ask me any question related to the test automation or UiPath test suite or even the UiPath test suite examination or anything. Any questions are open. It's not only specific to this session. Do you need a different license for test manager? Yes, you need to have a test manager license for sure in order to use it. Mail automation. I think what I suggested, like we have a lot of channels on YouTube where like we will get all the content available, right? Like mail automations is available in most of the channels. So I think you can go through that. Okay. So if you guys doesn't have any questions, then Ruchir, over to you, man. You have something to address. Your voice is not audible. You are on mute, I guess, or else like your mic is not working.
Now,
Yes.
am I audible? Yeah. Sorry. Thanks for the session. I was a little bit off in the last 10 minutes of the session, but thank you so much. And as we have recorded the session, we will be uploading it. The community can have a look by tomorrow, the session. And we are just waiting for the inputs that what kind of different sessions or different products you want to learn actually, so that if we are not able, we can find the right person to connect with you and arrange the sessions for you. So please don't hesitate to connect on any one of us, whether it is on LinkedIn or there are multiple communities, right? Feel free to reach out to us, ask what you need, and we would be most happy to assist you. I can see there are a couple of regions which we will be having the community day. If it is happening into your region, please feel free to go and visit the community day of UiPath. It will be a nice opportunity to you to interact with the persons with MVP, some product managers from UiPath, as well as it will be a good platform for you to connect a networking opportunity for yourself, which will open many channels for you. So
And
I think
announce the date for Pune as well, man. Announce the Pune date.
yeah, So the community day for UiPath community day for Pune will be happening on 13th of April. It will be happening into Globant, Hinjewadi phase 1. And I think Gajanan have pasted the link, but I will paste it once again so that you guys can join. And it would be definitely, means I would be happy to interact with you, listen your stories and whatever the pointers which we can assist. There are many other MVPs also planning. I think Pathradu and Nikhilesh and team are also planning to come. So it would be a nice opportunity for all of you.
And I think most probably I'll be coming there to meet Bantu, because Bantu is the first person to give the sessions other than from UiPath initially in 2019, I guess.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes,
there is a
Bantu is
question.
closely monitoring and is excited for the event actually. So he's
Yeah.
closely monitoring the progress.
So here we have a question. How much percentage of certification aspects are covered in this session if we have jumped off on doing certification? See, I cannot commit in terms of percentage, but we have the execution templates as part of the exam, and I have seen like 2 questions on the execution templates and the templates or test case templates and workflow templates in the test automation exam. I've seen 2 questions there. All cases can be hosted in CI/CD pipelines. Yes, that can be possible once you create the test set, and that can be triggered based on the CI/CD. Can you suggest SAP testing documents? See, in terms of SAP testing, right? Even I cannot commit or say anything on that, because unless and until we have an SAP access, right, that we cannot get hands on, because it's not freely available outside to explore for us. But I strongly recommend you to go through the UiPath documentation and UiPath Academy for SAP automations or SAP testman, heat map, or SAP related stuff. I strongly recommend to go through Academy, because we have a lot of videos on SAP related on only UiPath Academy. Okay. Anything else, guys? Anything to say, Ruchir? And do we have Sai-Kiran, or Sai-Kiran, do you have something to say? Just cleared your
I
test
think we are
automation.
good. Many people have dropped, but I don't know whether we have taken a picture of ourselves or not. Let's
And
do
guys,
it
if
to the
possible,
memory.
can you please turn on your cameras so that we'll just take a picture.
And also, if you are getting certified or you have any RPA success stories, feel free to tag us into your post so that we could highlight and we can take your success stories to the right people from UiPath. It would be helpful.
Guys, if possible, right, please turn on your cameras. We want to just take a picture.
This is very much needed. Otherwise, it happens like DevCon, right? We know the names, but we are not aware about the faces.
Yeah, Suraj, Divya, Sarath. There is someone with the name Gust. Hey Divya, how are you? I'm seeing you after a long time. You're on mute.
Hi Pathradu, I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. गजानन भाई अभी तो ऑन करो कैमरा.
अरे कुछ इशू हो गया, मैं फोन से लॉगिन करता है, एक मिनट
फोन
ना.
से लॉगिन करो.
करेगा
login
करेगा,
करो.
टेंशन मत लो, मैं करेगा. Just a second, folks. I'll just join from phone. Meanwhile, Ruchir, have you talked about the event for the next month?
Yes. I've talked about the UiPath Community Day as well. Yeah.
Okay.
13th of April. Yeah. We have